is me, the Cyber Warrior. This is Cyber Warrior Studios, and I know you are all here for another amazing episode of Security Happy Hour. And I promise, if you stick with me for just about 10 seconds, because we got an amazing guest that he's been on before, but you know me, I like to bring on guests again and again every once in a while. So stick with me, and I'll be right back. And I'm back. And like I said, it wasn't too long. But hey, guess what? There it is. The official sound of Security Happy Hour kicking off. And I'm here for it. And we're going to have an amazing episode talking ADHD and its superpowers, which I've talked about before briefly, but not in such depth, I would think, especially once you're in this field. So without further ado, my guest, fellow veteran, soldier I served with, Infinite Improbability AI, or as I like to call him, AR. What's going on, AR?
Hey, how's it going? Great seeing you again. It's great to be on again. This time, in the past, I've done a couple of tech podcasts, but this time we're talking about more mental health.
Yeah, definitely. And ADHD is an amazing superpower when used correctly, when you understand more of how it affects the mind and what you're capable of. And so, what has been your experience with ADHD so far? And what do you think has been a detriment to you? Let's start with that first. What has been like the hardest thing to deal with it?
Well, the hardest thing to deal with is, of course, maintaining focus. So it kind of evens out, kind of not really evens out. It's there's a lot of challenges to it, basically, but a lot of it has to do with motivation, getting tasks started, completing tasks towards the end, paying attention, just general paying attention. There's a lot of things that people with ADHD, there's some generalizations, a lot of characteristics that they suffer through. Loss of jobs, not being able to control emotions, dark thoughts, things like that. But there's also some benefits to it that I'd like to talk about.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, no, but you're not wrong. I do want to touch on the benefits, but I just want people to understand kind of what happens in the mind when you're dealing with stuff like that. Because before you can even touch on the benefits, understanding really the significance of until you gain control and are able to really utilize it to your benefit, how it affects people. And I think the biggest thing is just not being able to focus. You start on one thing and then it shifts to another, and then it shifts to another. Sometimes you don't even get started, but you're constantly bouncing around until you learn how to fixate and learn how to tune it to your advantage. Am I correct?
Oh, well, yeah. Well, first let's get the definition cleared up. Right, the attention deficit doesn't mean that you don't have attention. What they're talking about on ADHD is you have trouble regulating your attention. There are some tasks that you can focus on, and I'm talking about it's very easy just to go into flow, what people call flow. That's where your ego disappears, your emotions disappear, everything all your brains is just working on a single tasks. You're free of distractions. There's no emotion to it. It's just one task follows the other. That is flow. And when it comes with someone with ADHD, you either have a scatterbrain or you have flow. You have very hard time trying to get into those specific things. There's a lot of people that would go and say, like, I've seen, all right, I know you're not dumb, you don't turn in your homework, but there's just moments where you say something that's so profound, you think you're smart, but other times you're just like scatterbrained. You can remember things, like you can remember something that happened 10 years ago with extreme detail, but you have trouble remembering what happened earlier today, that sort of thing.
Yeah, definitely. And that's a huge thing because I find that more often in this career field probably than a lot of others. within IT and cybersecurity is the whole concept of being able to function with ADHD or any type of neurodiversity, any type of mental, what people would consider a disability, I really consider an ability, because when you look at certain concepts, it gives them a benefit that a lot of others don't have. So, like you were stating, you get into those hyperfixation, you get into that flow state. And I think with ADHD, because you have one of two extremes normally, you have either scatterbrain, kind of like when I'm trying to learn anything tech related out of books, I'm constantly jumping, versus that hyperfixation state or that flow state where you find something. And I find this a lot more when I'm doing things like hack the box or certifications, is I can kind of get into a flow and a rhythm of, okay, I'm going to know all of this. But you asked me to, like, at the moment something else grabs my attention, now I'm gone. I'm out of it, and it takes a while to get back into that state of mind.
It has to do. There's triggers for it, and usually with someone with ADHD, when they find something they're interested in,
mm-hmm.
it's something that they focus on completely. It's kind of hard to get if it's not something you're interested in. It's extremely hard for them, or for us, or anyone with ADHD, to actually focus your brain on that.
Right. I find that a lot. I find that very. See, and here's the thing, and here's why. And again, I'm not a doctor. I don't know for sure, but just what I have witnessed with, like, my nephew and other people I know that are either ADHD or on some type of autism scale or anything like that. If you give them something that they are passionate about, they will be the best at it and better than anybody else that is not neurodiverse, because they have that ability to fixate on it and do things in such a way that others cannot. Because those who don't have any type of mental or neurodiversity can focus, but it's never, I don't want to say it's not truly there, but it's not truly there, right? It's one of those things where it's like, oh yeah, I like this. And, but to dig in deep and to really fixate on something is very difficult for people that aren't neurodiverse, at least in my opinion. And again, I could be wrong.
Well, of course, everyone would say, like, oh, of course, if it's something you're interested in, you're going to spend more time focusing on that. But it's, for someone with ADHD, it's a lot harder to get out of that and get into that. More people who aren't neurodiverse or who have trouble regulate, or who can regulate their focus, it's simple for them. Sometimes it's easier on some things, but for people with ADHD, it's extremely difficult.
Right.
So that
can't grab their attention just off of anything.
Right.
It has to be something they enjoy. If they don't enjoy it, then they'll never pinpoint focus. And Amanda, who in chat, who has ADHD as well, she's absolutely correct. Because it's the same way for me. It almost becomes an obsession for us. And it does. It is truly one of those things where we will go into, it's either all or nothing. I'm either giving my all or you've got nothing from me.
Right. For me, it's coding. When I'm coding, I was doing something for Eric Bellardo the other day, and I was trying to code something, and I got obsessed with something where I need to process it, but I had to figure out, like, an algorithm. Next day, I'm spending hours on it. Next thing I know, I started at 4 p.m. Next thing I know, it's 5 a.m. The sun's coming out, and I'm all like time flew for me. Time flies for me, and I'm all like, oh shoot, I gotta go to bed. My wife works at night, so she left at 6. And she was gonna be home in 2 hours, and here I was trying to work out this algorithm that I'm trying to figure out. But for me, I was in flow. I was, time flew for me. But that is one of the superpowers. It's all right. People who have trouble, like I said, regulating, they either have scatterbrains or in flow. So that's one of the first superpowers of it, is hyper focused. You can get hyper focused on something and become extremely good at something, accomplish a task extremely well. You see insight just simply from hyper focus. Now that happens in one in one of two situations. One where it's something you're interested in, something that you really like. And number two is if it's something that has dire consequences if you don't accomplish it.
Yes.
So, which leads to another superpower is people with ADHD work well under pressure. We're used to having to wait or putting things off until the last minute. And then when time happens, we enter automatically into, or when something is about to happen, we automatically enter flow state and know exactly what to do.
And that's why I work better on. That's what I'm a procrastinator, right? But I'm a perfectionist.
Everybody's a procrastinator of some sorts.
So for me, it is very difficult to really, especially things like documentation or reports, anything that requires written word. It's very hard for me to focus and do that unless it's down to the wire. If it's like this is due in like a day, then the day before I can get it knocked out or that morning. But if it's like, hey, this is due in 2 weeks, I'm going to sit there and be like, okay, cool, I got time. And like just not be able to focus on it. But the moment the pressure's on and it needs to get done, then it's done. And I have to have it perfect. So I will go through that some bitch, I don't know how many times until I know it's right.
Right. Our brains are sprinters, but very, very poor long distance runners.
Oh, yeah.
Right. If it's a task that we need to accomplish right now, we can knock it out. However, if it's a task that involves day after day chipping at it little by little, each step we put it off to the next day. We put it off to the next day till the next day. And next thing you know, it's kind of hard to actually get started on something or on the small tasks that need to be done before we can accomplish the big tasks. So, like I said, it's sprinters, but very poor long distance runners.
Yeah, it's almost like give me the end goal and tell me it's due tomorrow, and I'll get it there.
Right.
But if you give me an end goal and a bunch of little tasks that are going to take me like 3 weeks, 4 weeks, then I'm going to wait till the end of that, and I'm just going to knock them all out at once, if possible. I'm just going to do it all at once.
Which is a tip for anyone who has, or any leader of someone who has ADHD, is don't tell, get this done, whenever you can, or, no rush on this. Tell them how long, or ask them, how long will it take for you to, do this for me? That way they will set their own date and know, hey, I need to accomplish it like I said I would.
Yeah, so and that's
a simple tip. Just tell them, don't say get it to me whenever you can. Say how long will it take you?
Dude, anytime someone says get this to me when you can, it's immediate. Like my immediate thought is it's not getting done. It's just not going to get done. If you tell me get it to me when you can, then I'm going to give myself a date that's never going to get accomplished. I'll be like, all right, I'll have it done in like a week, knowing damn well I got other work, I got other projects, I got other things I'm working on. You didn't give me a date and didn't make this a priority, so it's not a priority to me.
Yeah, for all you know, you could turn it in 10 years from now.
Yeah. And so it's crazy how that works because hold on, Amanda. I have a trick for making a bunch of small challenges out of a big project. That'd be intriguing, Amanda. You're gonna have to share that with the class, Amanda.
That's a technique you use through like Scrum or tasks breaking out or there's
I don't like Agile. I don't like those things because to me it's too structured.
Right.
Tell me I have something. Give me a project. And then say this part of it is due by this date. This part of it's due by this date. Then okay. But if you come at me and are like, hey, so what are we going to do this week? I'm going to knock out what I can, when I can, how I can. And if there's a due date on it, it'll get done by that due date. That's all I can tell you.
Right.
So, if there's not a due date on it, then it'll get done eventually. It's not a priority.
One thing I noticed when I was doing the cyber mission is there was this young airman. He was lower rank, maybe an E3 of whatever the Air Force.
Airman first class.
He comes in and I can tell he was trying to accomplish Scrum. He was trying to. I had to log in the tasks. I was taking care of the documentation. So, we had something this scheduled. I want this recorded, that recorded. Okay, we did it. But he was very structured about it. It was very loosey goosey at the time, but he wanted it specifically structured. And I'm all like, oh,
Right.
this guy is trying to do project management. That's what he was trying to do. Thing is, he was trying to do project management. There was a mission that needed to be done that we were scheduled for 7 a.m. Okay, 7 a.m. I was on the second shift. It was midnight, right? I was just about to get off. Somebody else was about to get on. But somebody higher up, maybe an E7 of the airman, comes in. He's all like, hey, how come these systems aren't on? And I'm all like, what are you talking about? And he was all like, we need these systems on. I'm like, are you doing on this mission? Yes. It's scheduled for 7 a.m. Yeah, but why aren't they on? It's midnight. We need them on. Like, there's a communication problem there. So even though someone might be doing Scrum, somebody else might be coming in an hour or a few. Yeah, he wasn't in the, or I guess the E7 didn't feel the need to relay that to the E3, who was trying to keep things organized.
Yeah.
In the structure. And here I am, monitoring all the systems, make sure everything that needs to be on is on, everything that needs to be on is off. And he comes up and says, hey, how come it's not happening? Instead of, hey, can you turn these on? We want to do this, pre-mission mission.
Yeah.
Why aren't they on?
Yeah, definitely. And it's one of those things, man. Like, when I think about it, what people don't realize is I really don't think there's no such thing as a neurodiverse disability. People call them disabilities, but I don't think they are. Just from what I've seen and the capabilities of so many people, whether it's ADHD, ADD, autism, you name it. Yeah, you maybe have social anxiety. You may not be able to do certain things, but the things you can do, the things you do, you do better than anybody else. Nobody will touch you in those industries except for those that are just like you, because it takes a certain kind of aptitude and capability to be able to focus and learn and actually retain all of that knowledge that you don't get if you're not neurodiverse. I think it's a lot harder even if you're passionate about something, if you're not neurodiverse in some way or shape or form.
I guess it depends on how you think about this. Both Marilyn Monroe and Rockefeller, I'm not sure if it was John D. Rockefeller or his son. It's all right. Marilyn Monroe says, well-behaved girls seldom make history. Rockefeller says, to be truly successful, you blaze your own trail and not follow the same trail everybody else has. So when you're a neurodiverse person, you're thinking differently than everybody else. You are thinking you're not capable of following what everybody else does. You got to fix this. That's almost shaky. All right.
Yeah, but that's the thing though. But I think about that. I think that way in general, right? If you're just following the same path as everybody else, you're not going to get anywhere. You're going to be stuck you're going to be another cog in the wheel. Those who are different, those who blaze their own trail, who make their own path, who do their own thing, the rebels, the outcasts, the neurodiverse, whatever you want to call them, those are the ones that find true success, I get, depending on how you think about it, but almost true success, at least in their own mind, because they made it their own way. They didn't have to follow some blueprint or some, hey, you have to do it this way. It was, I'm going to make it.
Yeah, you have to think. You have to be able to think differently in order to try something new. Which, I'm not sure if I'm trying. Here's another weakness amongst people with ADHD. We have bad time writing because we have things in our head that we need to get out, but we just don't know how to do it because our mind's going 80 miles an hour while our mouths are moving 8 steps a minute. So I'm trying to say it has to be different in order to, or you have to, your mind has to work differently in order to think differently. That's what I guess I'm trying
Yeah.
to say. So when I say neurodiverse, it's different than everybody else, but that's what is needed, is being able to. I can't. You know what?
Well, look at it this way, right? If you look at some of the brightest minds, some of the people that have been the wealthiest, some of the people that have made the biggest impact in the world, right? When it comes to innovation and business and things of that nature, they were either, if not both, autistic or ADHD. Look at people like Albert Einstein, Bill Gates, Steve Jobs. You can go through a slew of people that, in one way or shape or form or another, Elon Musk, I'd venture a guess, Mark Zuckerberg, and all these other people, whether or not they stole ideas or did not, they still thought outside the box, figured out a way to make things happen in a way that other people didn't think of, or were able to capitalize on it in a different way. So whether or not it was wrong how they got there, they still found a way to get there. And so I may not agree with all the methods, but you can't deny the results. And it comes from thinking outside the box. It comes from saying, I'm going to do this, and I'm just going to make it happen.
That brings us, or it's the first superpowers was that hyper focus and flow. Second superpower, creativity. Our minds think in so many different directions. We start making connections here and there, and how things eventually come together, and think of ways that other people just never even considered.
Right.
All right. Now, here's an example. Did you know that like nothing in nature has wheels? Like, I mean, you'd think it would.
I follow you. Yeah.
Yeah. You think it'd be like, I mean, the wheel is big invention. You can roll things. It's the easiest way to get from A to B. Carry things, and there's you'd figure that maybe something would evolve to have wheels, since it's the easiest way to get things from here to there. There's like a type of like microorganism that has like a propeller, but it's not quite a wheel. There are spiders that roll like a wheel, but still not quite a wheel. But if you think about it, the wheel is not very efficient in nature. God does not think in straight lines. What is most effective in nature are legs that can go over uneven grounds, and to scale. Goats can even scale wall through legs, or with their legs. They can get over, step over something, step through something, uneven ground, get their legs out of like mud and stuff. It's just easier to travel. The most efficient things is legs. Now, here's my ADD brain going in. There are types of algorithms that are being looked at right now. They're called nature-inspired optimization algorithms. Some's like what's it called? Ant colonization algorithms. It's kind of like Dijkstrom's, where they find least paths to through a network, through a spanning tree protocol, where they weigh in on the cost of a path to go from one router to another router, to a switch, to your computer and all that noise.
Like your OSPF and your different routing protocols. Yeah.
Right. Ants have found a very efficient way to communicate to each other from their den to the food source, and carrying it back. And they communicate that through a whole bunch of through each other. And now people are figuring out, hey, that is a highly efficient way that nature evolved into doing that. Like wheels, we think this way is, like we think wheels, it's the best way to do that. But nature says, here's a better way that gets over other obstacles. So in our mind, or for people with ADHD, we go from, wheels to legs to ants to neurodiversity, or to not neurodiversity, but network optimizations, simply from one going to the other, and we make all those connections. Now we end up with something that is still being studied right now. It's coming out, it just started in the 90s, but we're finding a new way, just connecting things that go all the way, that has no way of doing, no way of connecting.
Right. And it's the way the mind works. Because again, to your point, creativity and thinking and bouncing around. And eventually you're like this point to this point to this point to this point. And if any were to look at it, if you were to do a mind map, it would look completely ridiculous. People are like, this makes no sense. Like this, I don't get it. But in your mind, because it doesn't matter whether or not it makes sense to anybody else. It's the fact that the path you took eventually got to that point, which would have taken somebody else if they would have been like, they would have looked at it and been like, how'd you get to this? Like, how does this makes no sense. But to you, and that's the other thing though, is with ADHD, with neurodiversity, and with the way the mind bounces around, it will make sense even to those with ADHD or those that are also neurodiverse. It won't even make sense to them because it is one of those things that is independent to the thinker. They will understand almost the concept of how you got there, but they won't understand how you got there. If you get my point, like it'll be like, okay, yeah, the mind bounces around. I completely get it. You know, point A, point B. It may have taken a whole bunch of, different routes to get there, but we got there. That makes sense. But someone else is going to look at that and just be confused and be like, I don't get it. How'd you get there? Like that. I'm lost. How did you go from wheels to ants to what you're looking at? But to you, it makes sense and it's valid and it works. You know what I mean?
Right. I call those epiphanies. Like we space out and then make things, connect in our head, and then we go from one to another, and then we have an aha moment. What Amanda called it like last week is ADHD buffering.
Right. Or she likes to call them side quests now.
Side quests.
She said, yes, please don't look at my mind or make me explain how I got there. The point is I got there.
Right.
She was like, I call them side quests. It's true. You do. You kind of go and you're like, oh yeah, we're going to go with this. And you're like squirrel. And you're like, wait, squirrel comes back to here. And that leads to this. And that'll lead to this. And hey, now we're at the finale and I made it. And this is what's going to come of it. And someone's going to look at that and go, how'd you get there? Squirrel.
And it's weird. Well, one major event was like, I'm the youngest, my older brother. Sometimes he catches me, like I space out and in my mind, I'm making a whole bunch of connections. And then I say something and he goes, how'd you do that? I want to know what went on in your head. Like, how did you go from here to there? Like he was interested. But during my high school graduation, we had a graduation and it was going to be a post-graduation party. And I said to my brother, oh yeah, I'm going to post-graduation party. Then the night comes and he had his own vehicle, but instead he used my truck and he left and then he comes back. And I go, hey, I need to go because, I got the party. I told you about it. It goes, oh, I completely forgot. A couple weeks later.
Hey, AR, hold up. I got a guest for you real quick. You want to say hi to him?
Oh, who?
Come here.
Hey, bro.
Hey, what's up? Where'd you come from?
Texas.
Texas?
Texas, yeah.
So for all those that don't know, this is Bizzle. This is my brother. And, he's going to be hanging out for a while until I finally decided to tell him to get his own place.
I was at work, bro. So I just got home.
Honestly. Oh yeah, you are working. Oh, so we need to catch up instead of being. Or yeah, we eventually need to catch up. So I think the last time I saw you was at 3rd MISP.
Yup.
And then I disappeared, and now I reappear. Yeah, that happens.
No, didn't you? Or was that Biddle?
No.
Didn't you go to Japan?
Biddle went to Japan. I went to Texas.
Yeah, I always got used to confused because you have similar names.
Yeah, I know. Everybody did. It was like Biddle, Bizzle, come here. Yeah, it was. We were.
You're both bald black guys.
Yep. Yeah.
Tall, thin.
Yeah. Black, thin, and shit. Yeah.
They all look the same.
Yeah,
it happens.
Yeah. No, just him and Biddle. They had similar names. They were both tall and thin. Yeah, they could have been like biological brothers. So I'm just.
Yeah. Honestly.
So, that's another thing. I have what's known as face blindness. Now, my mind's always going. That's a weakness for me because I'm always thinking. I never quite look at people in the face.
Yeah.
So when I see people, I have trouble distinguishing faces.
I see. I'll remember faces, but not names.
For me, it's the other way around. I know names, but not faces. I haven't seen him in years. I knew his name, Biddle.
Yeah. I'll remember faces. I could not see anyone for years. I'm like, I know you. I know you. I don't know your name, but I know you. Bizzle recalled your voice. He didn't even know who was on with me. He just came in from work and he was like, I know that voice. I'm gonna go say hi to AR. And I was like, all right.
So I do have a unique voice. I gotta.
But you know what I find though? I find your ADHD. This is how I, even before I even knew in depth more about ADHD, I kind of knew you had it. I knew I did, but I knew you did just because of the way your mind works. And especially as me and you would converse more outside of the military, your love for data science and your ability to focus on numbers.
Right.
Numbers, stats, that type of stuff was always more than I could ever dig into. Like you'd bring out all these numbers and I'm like, homie, dude, that is awesome. I don't know how you got there. I don't know how you found it, but I get it. Like, cool.
All right. What I find about it is, all right, people with ADHD, we have a sweet tooth, right?
Yeah.
We have a sweet tooth. We can get easily addicted. It's that dopamine hit, right?
Yep.
That dopamine hit. You can ask anyone with ADHD, they have a sugar of preference. So mine is pies.
Yeah.
Pies. So anyways, it's that dopamine hit. And with data analytics and data analysis, it's kind of like betting in a sense.
Right.
You make a bet on something and you use past information to see if you're right or if you're right or wrong. Famous data set is the Titanic data set. So and it's one of the things you give people who are just starting out in data science. They got to write an algorithm to find out if a certain passenger lived or died.
And if Jack could have fit on the door.
Yes, he could have. So if someone, you would go and you're making a bet. What you want, you can straight up say, since 62% of the people died, 60 something percent, you can just straight up anyone who brings this passenger died, this passenger died, this passenger died, and you'd be correct 60% of the time. But if you do data processing, you can look at someone and say he survived, he lived, or she lived, he survived, she lived, and get even more right. And then break it up on age groups. The little boy survived, the little girl survived, the woman survived, the man died, and get even closer. And that is the dopamine hit, is when you're right. You're making a guess, you're doing a bet. Did they survive? Did they die? You're right. That's dopamine hit. What people get. So that's why, for me, data science and data analytics is addicting to me.
So we're the ADHD Avengers, according to Amanda.
All right. So, yeah. One thing that people with ADHD do is fail. We fail a lot. We let things. We don't
fail.
Time lapse.
We learn.
All right. We let things time lapse. Right. Time lapse. We forget about things. Things expire. Things do.
Never.
We don't get things done on time. Basically, we fail. However, that in itself is the other superpower. We are extremely resilient. We fail a lot. We get back up and we continue. And people with ADHD, that their superpower, they're resilient. That's what my brother a few weeks ago had a heart-to-heart, and he was saying, growing up, he's 7 years older than me. So growing up, he's all like, one thing he noticed that I was extremely, he called me tough. I guess what he meant was resilient, because you were extremely tough. You messed up a lot, but you just kept going.
Yeah.
People with ADHD, it's usually a genetic component. My dad, I was explaining him to a counselor, and someone said, your dad sounds like he was either bipolar or schizophrenic. And he did have, hallucinations sometimes, but that's where my ADHD comes from. It's from my dad's side. ADHD buffer moment. Well, in evolution wise, the hunter-gatherer people with hunter-gatherer societies, people with ADHD, extremely resilient, extremely persistent. They're the ones who are more likely to bring home food to keep their family fed because they
Persistent.
fail, but they try again.
So,
And
so let
try
me ask you a
again.
question.
And try
Do you-
again.
Do you feel that ADHD and or at least symptoms of it, that hyperfixation, that mind scatteredness and everything else, is always genetic, or could it be something that potentially over time develops based on situations that have occurred in your life and or different events?
There's a strong genetic component to it. If your parents don't have it, then there's usually an uncle or an aunt that had it, or a grandparent. That is a high probability of things. But the brain is plastic, the neuroplasticity, that's what they call it. You can form it and shape it into a certain way, and it'll function, indistinguishable from somewhere else. So it doesn't matter how old you are, you can work it out and make it and form it to a way for it to work. So you can either make it, highly efficient, or make it ADHD. Here's another ADHD tangent. Growing up, as a little kid, there was a drugstore. It was called Thrifty's. Thrifty's had ice cream, and there was 16. There was four rows, and another section, 4 rows and 4 rows. Rite Aid bought it out, and now the Thrifty's ice cream is available on Rite Aid. So, wherever you go, or if you ever see Rite Aid, I highly recommend the ice cream. However, that was when I was a little kid. They had 16 flavors. They had 2 types of cones, sugar cone and regular cone. Or you can get, a cup and stack them up. So you got 3 cups and 16 flavors. However, nowadays, there's Baskin Robbins, there's Froyo, there's gelato, seasonal flavors, Stone Cold. You can get sugar cones, you can get dipped cones, you can get smoothies, you can get, sundaes, banana splits, multi flavors. Basically, in the past, we only had a certain amount of options. Right now, we live in a world of 31 flavors. Every option we have to process and think about it. So in our minds, or everyone's in our minds, eventually someone's going to be overwhelmed with so much information that it's kind of hard to stay focused on one thing. That's where I think ADHD is coming from. We have so much options, and whatever choice you have 1, 2, 3, 4. Before, even before that, you had Neapolitan, strawberry, vanilla, chocolate. Now it went to 16 when I was a kid. Nowadays, you have all these flavors, all these soft serve, hard serve, everything. And trying to find out which one's the best or which one you'd prefer at the moment is extremely difficult. And you have to consider a whole bunch of things. Do you want this? Do you want that? Do you want it this way? Do you want it that way? So many options that our minds just can't keep up. So our minds, I believe it's since 2010, it's been a 10% increase each year of every year there's 10%. There's a 10% increase on people getting diagnosed with ADHD.
Do you want to know what I think another cause of that is?
What?
Immediate gratification with social media and things like TikTok. Because your mind now is focusing and changing so often, because it is impossible to multitask. We all know that. You either context switch or you don't focus at all, right? Your mind is never completely focused because you never pinpoint one thing.
Right. You switch, you have what they call residuals. So when you switch a task, you're still thinking about the last task. You're not focusing on the next one. It's called residuals. So
you have immediate gratification, because now we have the internet, we have social media, we have all these different things. So your mind is constantly going. Now you're going to bed with a phone in your hand. You're flipping through TikTok and everything else. And so when you have that, when you have those issues, when you have all these triggers now that is forcing your mind to constantly be active, and you're changing the context of everything you're focusing on. Because on TikTok, you get like 30 seconds, minute, maybe minute and a half of video, you go to the next. So now your mind can only focus for about a minute and a half at a time. But even then, the mind, if the scene doesn't switch every 5 seconds, if there's nothing to trigger the mind to stay active, now you're getting bored. You're no longer connected to the video. You're no longer connected to what's there. So you want to move on. So with all of the advent of social media, of things like Vine and TikTok and YouTube and the shorts and the reels and everything else,
Vine hasn't been a thing for many years.
right? But do you find that it is making ADHD, or at least the concept of it, maybe not truly ADHD, but the concept, do you find it's making it more prevalent? Because now, as a child, kids are getting exposed to this type of content because parents are not parenting. They're giving them devices at a younger age, which is now triggering their mind to not be able to focus for more than 30 seconds to a minute at a time.
I think this is a little bit complicated, but like I was mentioning before, the mind is highly adaptive and, neuroplastic, the theory of neuroplasticity. Okay. Your mind can adjust to something like that. It can adjust to all that information coming at you. The problem is taking that away. Between 2020 and 2021, there was a huge increase of people being diagnosed with ADHD.
Mm-hmm.
And that is because their minds were, at first being flooded with information. All of a sudden, everyone's quarantined, all that information dialed back, and it was hard to focus. So now it's people whose minds are trained to be race cars, to go from one to another, to another, to another, that automatically says, here, stay idle, but keep that engine running. So not really all the information coming at you all at once. So when you take that away.
Right.
So I don't think all that information that you give to your kids, the iPad, the apps, the social medias, that your mind is adjusting. It's a beautiful, it's an amazing thing that nobody can explain. It's when you take that away, you changed its environment, something that it's not used to. Now it's working. It's basically
so you had this trigger, right?
Right.
So what you're saying is we have this trigger point, especially within 2020. So when the pandemic hit, they pulled everybody out of school. Parents started giving their kids the iPads more and the phones more and things of that nature. So it allowed them this ability to get onto it more often. Now they're back in school. They're in full time. They're doing these different things. So now that technology, that social media, those videos are pulled away from them. So now it went from being able to consume that to now you're in a classroom where you don't have that ability. So now you can't focus. Is that what you're getting at?
Yeah. Well, when you spent years going to a classroom and stuff, and your brain's working a certain way, all of a sudden basically overnight, you start doing things online. You're all thinking, this is not this. People are a creature of habits. They learn. They get used to habits.
Right.
Basically. But when you change that, all of a sudden there's that learning curve, and people confuse that with ADHD. You're not in your natural environment.
Right.
The environment changed. So that's what I think is actually happening. Things are changing. It's not the fact that there's a lot of information, is that things are changing so fast. Your brain is having hard time keeping up with the changes.
And so,
once you learn something,
Steven here, he said the mind is very small, but it has the power to constantly process large amounts of information constantly, which is very true. We only use about 10% of our brains. To my knowledge, and from what I've researched and from what I understand, it's about 10% of our brains we use. We are not utilizing the full effect of our brain and what it is capable of. So he even says, and he goes on to saying, even while we are sleeping, it's still processing information within our dreams. I really wish my brain would remember what I dream, because I would love to know it, because I swear I have some great dreams. It would give me great ideas. I'd have so much more room for activities. But again, I think the mind in and of itself is crazy, because to your point, it is elastic. It has this plasticity to it that allows it to learn and grow and expand and understand. But to your point, it's the changes. It's when you shift focus, when you shift the way things are supposed to go, then
shift away than what you're used to.
Right.
People like things that are familiar.
Right. everybody's afraid of change. And don't get me wrong, I understand why. There are certain changes that are good. What I don't think was good in my eyes was going from structure in a school to homeschool with no structure back to structure in a school. I think that completely jacked kids up mentally and how they approach school, how they approach learning, and how they approach a lot of other things.
Well, not just the kids, the parents too.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
But
I think it depended on the parents.
Right.
Because like my wife has always been a very hands-on person when it comes to our kids learning. I try to be, but with me working full-time and her being a stay-at-home mom, she's more hands-on with the kids learning. And she has ADHD, like completely understood. We know. I do as well. Mine's never been diagnosed. I just know because of how I learn and how I do things. Like if I'm not in a classroom, don't expect me to learn anything from online. It's just not going to happen. Right. I don't care how much I love it. I cannot sit there and watch somebody talk to me for an hour. But my wife was always very good with the kids. But taking that, I have 3 older boys that weren't getting all the attention. And so the younger 2 still got the structure. The older 3 did not. And me and my oldest we'd go rounds because I'm like, look, I get it. I've got 3 screens. I work from home. I'm always on the internet. I understand what you're doing because I do the same shit. I can't learn online. I get it. But you put him back in the classroom and now everything changes. Now he goes back to straight A's and not failing. And it's because when he's online, his focus is not on the course. It's I've got all these other things I can do. And we can't be there all the time. We can't force him to do everything by its due date. I mean, we could, but it's very difficult when you got 5 kids. And when we had 5 kids, none of this was a thing. None of it. And then it became a thing. So don't say, oh, you chose to have 5 kids. Yes, I did. But I did not choose to have a pandemic. Just saying.
The average age for people to get diagnosed or for children to get diagnosed with ADHD is 7. And there's debate about it's what?
That's if you choose to.
Yeah, if you choose to. Well, people start noticing those behaviors. And let's see, like boys are 3 times more likely to get diagnosed with ADHD than girls. However, there's some debate about that because in girls, ADHD manifests differently. Where a boy is hyperactive, explosive, going here and there. For a girl, she's inattentive. She internalizes it, and it's very spacey. Usually, that gets diagnosed as something else other than ADHD, like depression or something else. But in reality, it's ADHD. In addition, with another neurodivergent
that's
condition.
So I can understand what you're saying there because you're right. My boys are very active. They never stop ever.
Right.
But I don't believe in medicating my children, right? For me, it's something I don't believe in. I won't give them Ritalin. I won't give them anything to calm them down. No. We're going to find a way to focus your energy. We're going to find a way to focus your thoughts. We're going to find what works for you.
Your flow trigger. You got to find their flow trigger.
Exactly. Because in my eyes, if you medicate them, now you get rid of what's special. You get rid of that trigger because now they're medicated. So now they're just going to sit there and be like, yeah, okay, whatever you say. Like, whatever you want me to do, I'll do. Like, no. I want you to, I need to be able to find their trigger point, their focus point. Once I find that, then we could talk. We could work around all the other issues. But I need to find that. And
yeah, there we go. Amanda.
I have.
Amanda
is video editing and digital or graphic design. Those 2 things, video editing and graphic design, all day. Athletics and things like that, no. Not his style. I don't care. Okay, cool. You're going to do this. I want you to do a YouTube channel. As soon as you feel froggy, go do it. And he's like, okay. My others, still working on it. Still finding their niche. But you find their niche and they will excel. You just got to find it.
He's a special thinker.
Yeah.
Special thinker. He thinks of paintings, arts, videos, lights, shapes, colors, spatial
Yep.
thinker. Well, Amanda was saying she's a daydreamer. That's another thing that women do is daydream. They daydream. They become adaptive. They're extremely smart, but they are extremely.
I think Spacey and those that are those that are thought of as unintelligent. And again, yes, there are some, and that's men and women both are fucking brain dead. But I think a lot when they daydream are thought of as spacey and unintelligent, when in reality, it's just their mind is going in different places that you can't see.
Right. And for people and for girls or women with ADHD, it happens more often than someone who doesn't. I mean, everybody will daydream. Everybody daydreams. About 20% doesn't have their internal monologue, but they daydream. But what was it called? But it is but people with ADHD, it just happens a noticeable amount more.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I will go off and literally be in my own mind. I will literally just go off and just, as I'm talking to my wife, she'll say something that'll like spawn a thought and I'll be gone. And she'll keep talking. Right. And I'm like, yeah, okay, babe. Like, I will literally just say things just because I know I hear her. But in reality, in my head, I'm not even there anymore. Like, at all. Because something she said triggered a thought that just sent me off on a tangent.
So, for a girl, they are for any or also with oh shoot, hold on, let me get my thoughts together.
It's that ADHD brain, man.
Yeah, right. Right. I wanted to get a girl on here as well so they can explain their experience. Like Amanda, I noticed she said before she had ADHD. I'm all like, oh, I wish I tried to get Kamiri. Speaking of people from our past, I tried to get Kamiri Kim. Oh, dude,
Kamiri, you just told me I would have reached out to her.
Oh no, she said like she was busy, so she couldn't make it.
Okay.
So I already tried, but yeah,
Kim is awesome. I love her.
Yeah, Kim. What is that?
Kylie,
Kamiri Kylie, Kim.
Yeah,
Kim Kylie. No, she is ADHD, and I tried to get her on, and I wanted to know, but she got busy. So what's it called? Amanda was saying, well, for women, they are. For a guy, it's very extrovert. They explode, hyperactive. For a woman, it's a lot more emotional. For a woman with ADHD, they become hyper-fixated on. They have also emotional irregularities. Everybody, or I mean, both boys and girls. But it would be like for a girl that gets bumped into, or they greet someone, "Hey, how's it going?" And that person is like, "Eh." Then, like for Amanda, she would be thinking, "Well, why did they respond to me like that? Did I do something wrong? Is there something I can do?" And she gets fixated like all the way up until lunchtime. Then all of a sudden she completely forgets about it. But for that entire time, that's the only thing that's in her head. What did I do? Why would I do that? Because they have trouble what's it called? Regulating their emotions. It's emotional impulse control. And
Andrea, who is on her husband's account, her phone probably died, said, yes, we are tied to our emotions. And I think that is the biggest difference. The biggest difference between men and women is how they are tied to their emotions. And I talk about this a lot on the rest of my content that I do, is men have a problem expressing emotion in any way, shape, or form and don't really regulate their emotions all that well. Whereas women,
when a guy
tied to their emotions and respond emotionally more frequently.
Well, when a guy expresses emotions, they could be they often get like it's that people tend to say,
it's a blow up. It's either overly expressive in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, it's a blow up, and then all of a sudden,
or anger, or rage, or sadness, whatever.
Right, and everybody would say, it would scare a lot of people. So people would say, "I wish guys would be more in control or would emote more." But when we emote, all of a sudden, it's like, "Oh my god, this guy's a psycho."
Yeah.
So it's toxic masculinity. There was. I heard a story of a girl. She had testosterone cream, like. She put some on her arm, like by mistake. And next thing she knows, she was extremely aroused and was just like anger and aroused by her boss and her coworker, and she went into the restroom and she said, "What's wrong?" And then she remembered, "Oh yeah, I got that cream on me that had a guy's full dose of testosterone." That's when she realized guys are a lot more in control of their emotions than she gave them credit for. Because if that was one day's worth, imagine a guy going through that day in and day out. That is that. Yeah, it is.
And again, it's a different thought process, and this is how men and women are very different, even with ADHD, because again, like Andrea said, they a lot of their brain power gets tied to emotion, whereas a lot of ours get tied to logic. And again, that's not to say women aren't logical. That's just to say men hold in their emotions and regulate their emotions until they blow up.
All right. I'm a data scientist. Remember, tend to be. Women
Right.
tend to be emotional. Men tend to be logical.
Again,
if you were to make a bet,
yes,
men would be logical.
And again, it's a generalization. It's not all. It's a generalization.
There's extremes on both ends. I know.
Always is. Whereas, you know, with women that react more emotionally, it makes it harder. And that is because if you look at it, you know, when you're looking at things like ADHD and how women daydream and how people do things and how women and men are different, that's the same in every regard. You know, every way you look at it, because of genetics, because of, you know, hormone levels, because of whatever you want to call it, they're different. And so even with ADHD, to your point, boys will be rambunctious and run around and go crazy and all this other stuff. Girls will space out and daydream and, you know, this, that, the third. At the end of the day, the end result is always going to be the same. And this is what I look at as the end result. The end result is give them something to focus on. They're very different, but find their trigger, find their weakness, find whatever it is, whatever you want to call it. Find that pressure point that'll get them to focus. And both of those things will be gone.
Well, like I mentioned, two things that puts someone with ADHD in, you know, flow mode is something they're interested in and something that is something dangerous. Yep. So something that would have consequences if you don't do that. Now, with women with ADHD and emotional control, they have three situations in which which is another hurdle. They have hormone shifts every month. They have hormone shifts when they're pregnant, and they have hormone shifts that later on in their life, menopause. That is what are we on? Number 5 on another superpower. People with ADHD that have trouble controlling their emotions is we are extremely empathic. We understand what somebody else is going through or what they're feeling, and should
the hardest
approach thing is because sometimes every once in a while we have that I have like emotional outrages. But because I have those, I understand when someone's angry, when someone's sad, how to approach this, how to approach that, what's the best way to get them to listen to reason, because I understand what they're going through. My wife, it scared the hell out of my wife. She was years ago, she said someone at her hospital, a doctor, ended his life. You know, he terminated early. And I'm all like, oh, that's a shame, isn't it? That scared the hell out of her. The fact that I was able to blow it off. The thing is that she didn't understand that we come from 3rd Battalion. At the height of it, I did the math. Within a 2-year span, we had 6 self-terminations.
Was it 6?
Yeah, it was 6.
Okay.
Within a 2-year span,
2. Interesting question.
Oops. 2.
Your watch went off too.
Yeah. 2 accidents. No, that was 3 accidents and what was it called? An attempt. The guy who
craziest one I will never forget is the Humvee.
The Humvee? Yeah, I was part of that. I was the one behind it. So, well, the thing is, I was because of my emotions, and I understood that situation. Like at first, I had a hard time with it. That was September 19th, 2012. His name was Wills. Yep. I saw the top of his head. I'm the one who called in to the police to get the people.
How?
I was
Time out.
I was on the Humvee behind him.
Time out. So I got to ask, and everybody in chat right now, well, most of them anyways, know I deal very highly in men's mental health. How in the hell have you been able to process that for so long?
Well, it wasn't my first time. Remember, remember I said there was within a 2-year span there was 6 and 3 accidents. Well, that was one of them.
Right, but I'm talking about you seeing it. So did you see the rest or not?
No, I saw the guys. I could see his brain.
I get
missing
that.
Yeah,
You're talking about Willis, right?
yeah, Wills. Yeah, Wills.
Yeah. So I'm talking about the rest. The rest that had happened, you were not there nor saw. So being able to see Wills, how have you been able to process and deal with that for as long as you have? Because for as long as I've known you, you have been a lot more grounded and able to deal with these situations than a lot of others I've met.
So I can cope with it easier. I've had so much practice on it. Like my ADHD mind can have that moment of emotional. I have practice coping. Yeah, I have practice coping. All right. I'm not saying I do it in a healthy way. My brother notices that I have an angry tip when I'm thinking about what I'm angry. I'm like, I don't notice I'm doing it.
I hit my leg. I do it. I know I have one.
Yeah, he notices that I'm doing it, and he says you're internalizing something. I have to. He's recommending me processing that. Usually, when I'm doing that, I'm thinking of something that angers me.
Yeah.
But before you even got to third, there was even a murder.
Why does that not shock me?
Yeah.
Why does that not shock me?
So there was a murder. It got to the point where we were so good at the memorials, other people would come to 3rd Battalion for us to help them.
You know what the sad part about that is? And look, and I do want to get back. We got to finish up this episode, and we will get back to it. And I know for those in chat, understand me and AR go way back, and we've dealt with a lot. I do want to say this is a final part for all my veterans out there and all those that have watched that have been veterans or are listening online. Understand this. What 3rd did and what 3rd has done when we were there was complete and utter bullshit.
All right.
Give awards.
He said 3rd Military Information Support Battalion. 3rd.
Yeah. For those that don't know, they gave awards for doing memorial services. Memorials. Being there for your brothers and sisters that in one way, shape, or form are no longer with us. That is something we did with honor and with pride because they deserved better than what they got. It is not something that should have ever been awarded. Ever. And the fact that the command thought in their right mind that this deserves an award, in my eyes, was complete and utter bullshit.
Here's something you might not know. 3rd Battalion was an anomaly. People from other battalions called us Slaughter Battalion because we had so many self-deletions and accidents.
Because we had the worst. I'm out. I can say what I want, but I'm going to bite my tongue. So, look, this is about cybersecurity. This is about ADHD. I'm going to tie it up because I'm going to lose my shit if I don't. AR, please help anybody with ADHD, anybody trying to hire someone with ADHD. Give your words of wisdom. Give your advice. Let them know how it go.
People with ADHD think differently than what you might expect. That is an asset. If possible, get as many as you can because they will give you insight and creativity and connections that you would never have thought of even possible. They find somehow through a chain of events and thoughts and memories, they will connect to lead to either a solution, something new, something fresh, something innovative, something inspirational to the point where it will make a major shift in it would cause a disruption. So people who think think regularly, as you would say, you do the same things over and over, you'll get the same results. People with ADHD don't think the same way, and that will give you something chaos. You'll have, you'll take new risks. You will have, new insights. You will have new problem solving, new solutions to problems, and in addition, skills that's another superpower. People with ADHD, because our attention shifts so much, we are a jack of all trades. We have so many skills because we hyper focus on one skill, then a couple of months later, another skill, and we'll have life experience that you wouldn't even think was necessary, but will eventually somehow benefit you one or another. It's chaotic. It's interesting. Passion. You'll get passion. You'll get enthusiasm. You get high energy. All that things. So.
All right, I love it. So
I didn't want to end it on a bad note when we go back on
we got to end it
about
positively. We got to end it
positive
positively.
note.
So I will say this. Look, I love you all. You've all been amazing. Thank you for joining me this evening. Thank you for joining Sergeant AR. I love you, brother. As always, this has been Security Happy Hour. And for those that don't know, you can always donate. Check the description on YouTube. This is up all the time. I don't get rid of any episodes. I'm up to like 140 something, maybe almost 150. So we're getting there. Otherwise, I love you all. You're all amazing. You all belong here. And I really hope to find you all succeeding and excelling in cybersecurity. I don't care what anybody says about you. You all deserve to be here.
Hey, tell Bizzle it was good to see him too.
Take care. And I will see you next week with another amazing episode.